Hello world, welcome to Python training, and in this video we are getting started with Python. So let me give you the brief history about Python and then we will get started. Python is a high level general purpose programming language and it was invented in late 1980s by a guy named Guido van Rossum in Netherlands. He had invented Python as part of a research project. It was the successor of ABC programming language. It was first released in 1991 and the first version that was released was Python 0.9.0. Nowadays, Python is one of the most popular and fast growing language which is widely used in web development, data science and analytics, ML and AI, and various scientific and numeric computation, network programming, cyber security, etc. And Python is growing with a very fast pace. Now talking about the Python's design philosophy. So when the Python was designed, the two philosophies that were kept in mind were code readability and significant indentation. Python uses white space as indentation instead of curly braces to delimit blocks. Now let me discuss about the programming paradigm. So what does paradigm mean? Paradigm is basically a way to do some task, and programming paradigm means way of programming, the way in which you do programming. So in computer science there are different types of programming paradigms such as procedural programming, object oriented programming, event driven programming, functional programming, logic programming, aspect oriented programming, and so on. Now talking about Python's programming paradigms, basically Python supports the following programming paradigms. So it supports procedural programming, then it supports object-oriented programming and functional programming. So this is the quick introduction of Python. Now let's get started with Python. So first thing we will look forward is to install the Python in our local system. So in order to install the Python, we can visit python.org website from where we can download the Python. So this is the python.org website where you can download the latest version. So they show the download link for latest Python version in their home page. So once you click it, so this will basically download the Python executable. So Python executables are basically downloaded under app data, then in local folder under programs section. So I have two Pythons downloaded in my system. First one was 3.9, the second one was 3.1. So you can have multiple Python executables downloaded in your system, but at a time you can use any of these available version. So in order to use any particular Python version, what you need to do is to set up the environment variables. If I go to system properties under advanced section, if I'll click environment variable, so here I can set up the path for the particular Python version which I want to use. If I go under the path variable, so you can see here I have set it up the path for Python 3.12. So if I set up the path for Python 3.12 in my environment variables, I can say that Python 3.12 is installed in my system. I can have n number of Python executables in my system, but at a time I can use any particular one version of Python by setting up the environment variable like this. If I open the command prompt and if I type Python -- version, it will show the version of Python installed in my system. So it is Python 3.12.3. So this is about installing Python in your local system. Now let's talk about the IDEs that we use for Python. Some of the IDEs that we use for Python are PyCharm. So if you have used IntelliJ for your Java development, PyCharm as well as IntelliJ, they look very similar because they are developed by JetBrains. Then the next IDE is Visual Studio Code. Then we have Jupyter Notebooks, PyDev, Idle, Sublime Text, Spider, and then we have online compilers or interpreters as well for Python development. So as part of this training program, I will be using PyCharm as the IDE for Python development. But before moving on to the PyCharm, let me show you the online compilers or interpreters that are available for the Python development. If you'll go to programmist.com, so this is one of the very handy online compiler for Python. Here you can type in your Python code, and once you click run button here, it will show the output on the right hand side. So for minor development work or in order to learn the concepts, you can use online Python compiler as well. Now let me show you how we can install PyCharm. So for installing PyCharm, you can basically go to the JetBrains official website. From here you can download the PyCharm. Installation is pretty simple. So once you download it, you just have to execute the executable file of the PyCharm, and it will install the PyCharm IDE for you. So once the PyCharm is installed, if I'll open PyCharm, it will look something like this. So I have created this workspace and I have opened this using the PyCharm IDE. So in order to create the workspace, you can go to any drive, and if you will click new folder, new Py workspace name, if I'll give, and if I'll open this workspace through PyCharm, I can open and then navigate to the new py workspace. If I select this, click OK, and if I'll click this window, it will open the new py workspace. That's how you create the workspaces, and that's how you open it through your PyCharm. So it by default creates main.py, so you don't have to worry about what is main.py. So we'll be covering that in later videos, but for now you just understand how we create the basic workspace and how we basically get ready to start our Python coding. So this is all about this video. See you soon in the next video.